Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Dear viewers and students, I'm extremely sorry that I couldn't upload these videos earlier because of my various other professional commitments. From now on, you will be receiving videos in this series regularly. Today, we are going to learn the use of prepositions. So let's start the video. Let us first know what a preposition is. A preposition is a word usually placed before a noun or a pronoun to show in what relation the person or thing denoted by it stands in regard to something else. So notice the examples in the morning. So it denotes the part of the day, a part of the day. On Sunday morning, at night, angry with somebody, on a bus. So all these things actually denote a position, a placement of the noun or the pronoun with regard to something else. Okay. Now, we need to know the correct use of prepositions in certain cases, right? So, in English, you must have heard about this that like prepositions should not come at the end of a sentence. Okay, many a times we have heard English teachers talking about this, but in case of informal style, okay, only in informal style in English, prepositions can come at the end of clauses in certain structures. For example, what are you thinking about? This is something you should check into. So, in the first sentence, about was a preposition. Here, into is a preposition. She is not very easy to talk to. So, the sentence also ends with a preposition to. I hate being shouted at. Here, at. You are just the person I was looking for. For. He is the man I spoke with. Here, with. So, these structures are generally used in informal style, in case of informal speeches. Okay. Now, after prepositions, ing forms of verbs are used. Prepositions are not generally used before infinitives. What kind of words are infinitives? Like the present form of any verb, like to see, to look, to go, to come. All these are infinitives. So, when we use prepositions after a verb or a noun or an adjective, we usually use the ing form of a following verb. Let me explain with an example. He insisted on being paid at once. So, here, which one is the preposition? On. He insisted on. So, the preposition has been used after a verb and it is followed by the word be, right? So, we have to use the ing form of this word. He insisted on being paid at once. Next one, I don't like the idea of traveling in rain. Here, of is a preposition and it is followed by travel, another verb. So we have to use the ing form of the verb. Idea of traveling in rain. Next one, I am not very good at cooking. So at is a preposition and after that we are using this verb. So we have to use the ing form. Now, remember that when to is a preposition, it is followed by ing forms. For example, I look forward to seeing you soon. So in this sentence, I look forward to is a preposition. So whenever we have to as a preposition in a sentence, then it should be followed by the ing form of the verb. Okay. I look forward to meeting you. I look forward to seeing you. Like this. Next, prepositions and infinitives. So, in the following cases, we drop the prepositions and use an infinitive. Okay, so remember these exceptional cases. Like, we can either express this sentence using a preposition or by using an infinitive, but we cannot use both in a sentence. So if I want to express this using preposition, it should be he asked for a loan. But using infinitive, he asked to borrow some money. Okay, here to borrow is an infinitive, and the sentence should be like this. He asked to borrow some money. Now, here, this to is not part of the prepositions, right? Do remember that, because earlier I have already mentioned that if you find to as a preposition in a sentence, then you must use the ing form of the verb. So the sentence was, I look forward to meeting, right? So here, he asked to borrowing will not be the correct form of the sentence, because here to is not a preposition. Here it is an infinitive. So he asked to borrow some money. Next example, we are traveling for pleasure. For is a preposition, right? Now, using infinitive, how can we express this? We are traveling to enjoy ourselves. Next example, she was surprised at his mistake. So, here, at is a preposition, right? Surprised at his mistake. Now, using infinitive, we can say, she was surprised to see what he had done. Okay? Here, to see is an infinitive. Next, prepositions before conjunctions. So, in indirect speeches, prepositions are not used before the conjunction that. For example, I knew that he had problems. So, notice that here the conjunction that has been used. So, if I say I knew about that he had problems, then the sentence would have been marked as incorrect. Okay. So either I should say I knew that he had problems, or if I want to use prepositions, then I have to remove that. I knew about his problems. Okay, both the forms are correct. One, in the first case, I have used the conjunction that, so I have to remove preposition. And in the second case, I have used preposition, so I had to remove that. Next example, she had no idea that I was unhappy. We can say using preposition as she had no idea of my state of mind. Okay. Next one, I was surprised that she was so strong. How can we say this using preposition? I was surprised at her strength. So do remember that in the same sentence, we should not use this kind of structure where we are using the preposition and immediately after the preposition we are writing that or speaking that, then it would be an incorrect sentence, right? So the form should be this. Either you say, I knew that he had problems, or you should say, I knew about his problems, right? Next rule, sometimes the expression the fact is used between the preposition and that in a sentence. Okay, this is exception, right? So notice the examples carefully. He paid no attention to the fact that the child was alone at home. So to is a preposition here, but you remember the earlier rule that you cannot use that immediately after the preposition. So you have to bring in the word the fact. So we have to say in this way, he paid no attention to the fact that the child was alone at home. Next example, the parents were responsible for the fact that the child had run away. Achha. So here, for is a preposition, and between for and that we have to use the fact, for the fact that. Okay. So if you need to use a preposition and that both in a sentence, then you need to use such a kind of phrase, the fact, in between the two words. Number 3, use of prepositions in indirect questions. Okay, so what is the difference between direct question and indirect questions? Like, notice the first example, tell me where you went. So if I would have asked where did you go, then that would have been direct question. And if I ask tell me where you went, then it becomes an indirect question. So in case of indirect question, I have written the rule just at the end of this slide. Read that. After words like tell, ask, depend, sure, look, prepositions can be dropped before who, which, what, and other question words. Means you are using these verbs in a sentence, tell, ask, depend, sure, look. If you use these verbs in a sentence and after that in the same sentence you are using WH words like who, which, what, or other question words like how, then you have to drop prepositions there. You don't have to use preposition in such sentences. For example, tell me where you went. You don't have to say tell me about where you went. It should be tell me where you went. And if you want to use about, then you have to remove the WH word. Like tell me about your trip. Next example, I asked her whether she believed in God. You can say using preposition in this way, I asked her about her religious beliefs. Next, we may be late. It depends on how much traffic there is. So you don't have to use on. It depends how much traffic there is. But using on, how will you say? We may be late. It depends on the traffic. I am not sure how he does it. We can say using preposition as I am not sure of his method or of his ways. Look at what I have got. So here you don't have to use at. You will say look what I have got. And using at you can say look at this. Okay. So this is how you need to use preposition in a sentence, and especially in indirect questions if these conditions are there, if these verbs are there in the sentence, and you are also using WH words like who, which, what, how, then you have to drop the preposition before these words. Next examples. Here, these are certain cases where we cannot drop prepositions, like I am worried about where she is. See, I have used preposition and WH words side by side, but notice that here those verbs are not mentioned. The verbs that I have listed in the previous slide, those verbs are not used here. So, if I use these verbs like worried, questioned, then I can safely use, or rather I have to use preposition and WH words side by side. I'm worried about where she is. If I say I am worried where she is, then the sentence would be wrong. The police questioned me about what I had seen. There is the question of who is going to pay. I am worried about whether you are happy. Achha, here you must remember another important rule, that like when learning narration change, direct speech and indirect speech, then we have learned the use of if and whether, and the use of these two words was quite similar. Like we used these two words synonymously, but here you must remember that when we are using preposition in a sentence, after that we have to use the word whether. We cannot use if in such sentences. So if I write I'm worried about if you are happy, then the sentence is wrong. So it should be I'm worried about whether you are happy. So do remember this distinction in the use of if and whether. So please stay tuned for the next videos. In the next video, I shall discuss the correct use of some prepositions. If you find this video useful, then please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Keep watching, keep learning. All the best. Thank you all.